What is Happy Monday, people! And welcome Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. And if you like the videos, don't forget to like them. Hit the like button. And, of course, subscribe, share, and far and wide. If you are on Rumble, move on over to wherever else we are streaming, YouTube, locals, whatever else. Like it there, too, and subscribe there, too. Same thing for you YouTubers. You're stubborn. Move on over to Rumble. Move on over to locals. Like it there. It's all that stuff has an enormous impact. It really does. It's extremely helpful. It's a great way to support the show. Of course, subscribe. And the best place to follow us, as always, is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Great book club yesterday. Great book club. Growing every week, it looks like, which is good. We're reading The Emerging Republican Majority. Hopefully, we'll be able to get into maybe Texera's Emerging Democratic Majority after that, because we're getting pretty close to the end. We're now in the Great Lakes region, which is huge when it comes to the 2024 presidential election. Honestly, it's huge in the Trump era. Before I get into the President's Day disconnect here, word of the day, kids, the word of the day is consolidation. This is what consolidation looks like. We didn't have much time to go over the primary results on Friday of the other poll. Also today, I want to talk about where we're going to go next, maybe kick around some ideas, and then I'll monitor what you guys say about it on Locals and elsewhere, particularly on Locals, because I really think South Carolina is a waste of money. It's only a matter of how much Donald Trump is going to win it by. Nikki Haley is not going to win South Carolina. We can get into it a little bit if we have time today. Nikki Haley has no intention of winning South Carolina. How do I know? Because I've read their stuff. All right. Somebody showed me. They only intend to survive South Carolina, whatever that means. The campaign has defined it as doing better than how they did in New Hampshire. Some polls suggest that may be possible, but South Carolina fundamentally is more Trumpy than New Hampshire is. The only wild card here is that Nikki Haley has had more time to send out mailers, to send out text messages, and do a whole bunch of other little dirty little tricks for Operation Chaos, what Rush used to call Operation Chaos, to get Democrats to vote in South Carolina. She's had a lot more time to do that than she did in New Hampshire. And, that's going to, again, I've warned everybody, this is going to grossly dirty up the data that Republicans have. If we could have some time, we'll get into it. We'll talk about it a little bit. However, the goal is not to win. The point of this is to get to Super Tuesday and dirty up as much of the rolls they can on Super Tuesday, have some maybe handful of delegates. Nikki Haley's future is completely reliant on whether or not Donald Trump wins 24. Because if he let's say he doesn't, right? And our polling suggests he's going to. If the election was held today, Donald Trump's going to win. And it's not going to be particularly close, actually. I mean, close, yeah, because it's the American president, and that's just the way our country is right now, but not close for modern standards. Anyway, if he was to lose, she will hang around and say, see, I told you so. But she's already beginning to do things that are telegraphing her break from the Republican Party, which I think is what she ultimately will do. Nikki Haley is no longer a Republican. You may have seen her interview over the weekend and then the Politico article that was being shared. But generally speaking, to make, a very long story short, Nikki Haley went on Sunday shows and refused to keep her promise, her pledge that she would support Donald Trump in the general election. Now, again, don't let me forget to blame the RNC for this and blame Ronna McDaniel for this. For a few dollars up front, so they could have debates and all this other nonsense, for a few dollars up front, they gave up the goose and they let these people go on and basically say, that they would support people that they never intended to support. So now she's refusing to keep that pledge. And that would mean she was never allowed on the debate stage. And she played them. I mean, she really did play them. Here's where look at this map. Look at the map you're looking at right now. 80% in a primary, 8 in 10 roughly, that's consolidation. The rule of thumb is that you want to get 90% or better of your base in a general election to win. By the time you're in a primary, already 8 in 10 consolidation, and Trump is a little over 75%. That is historically unheard of. It's huge. Even in a two-way, go back and look at it. Go look at Hillary Clinton versus Barack Obama, since everyone always wanted to use the 08 analogies. I don't know what happened to those 08 analogies. They were great when Ron DeSantis was trying to win Iowa, but for some reason now they're just gone. They vaporized. But now would be an appropriate time to look at them. At this period, nobody was there. Nobody was there. Nobody was anywhere near that. And yet, ultimately, they consolidated 90% plus. Same thing when it came to 2016 with Donald Trump. He never had this level of support, especially not before Super Tuesday. And yet here we are. And he got 90% support. So the goal is to get your base solidified. And the truth of the matter is, and I'm going to read this real quick, as the title suggests, he consolidated Republican primary voters in February. I'm talking about Trump. Support for Trump in the Republican primary now exceeds support for Biden in the Democratic primary. All right. So let me read this as we go. And the issue, but just a little technical word here. If you scroll down, you'll see we did add a new section to the tooltips, trust to handle the different issues. Unfortunately, we're having an issue when it comes to the general election map. The data set is so big, it's giving us a problem. So we're making some fix right now where hopefully we can make this connect to external servers, and then this way the burden is not on Data Wrapper to load this stuff up. But also, live polling is being tested. So it is very conceivable we'll be able to have some very soon. We'll be able to have, we're not going to do this for everyone. Everyone's not going to get this. Like YouTube members and local subscribers, and I should have said that vice versa because I want you to subscribe to locals. You will get to see those maps where literally we pre-program what color Donald Trump is. We pre-program what color Joe Biden is. And you will see a map, a state map by county or something, for instance. And then you will see these little locators pop up, these little location indicators. And that will tell you that somebody chose Donald Trump, somebody chose Joe Biden, and the tooltips will populate as they get full, because as of right now, they're set to be empty until a value is passed. So at the end of it, we will then give you the weighted result, but you will see the raw collection like you see it here. All right. And this, by the way, is raw. You may be able to look at this map and realize that we absolutely weighted very favorable to Nikki Haley. This is a much more moderate national population than what we are seeing vote in these primaries. From Iowa, New Hampshire was pretty moderate. That's true. But Nevada was not. And then we're going to move to South Carolina, where I suspect it'll be more moderate than, let's say, 2016. But maybe not. Maybe not. And it doesn't matter, because it's not going to be like 2000 moderate, where it was very, very much. If you go back and look at that year, you'll see. That's not going to happen. So I think the entire general pop was like 34% conservative. And yet Trump had the lead over Biden that he did when we were, that we went over on Friday. So this was being very generous to Nikki Haley, not because we wanted to. It's just that's the way the other things we don't weight by ideology. It is a red flag to us, but everything else looked good. And it is possible that the electorate is getting more moderate. So we're not going to tell the electorate what it is. We're going to listen, and we're going to pass it along, because that's our philosophy. But you can see from the raw collection here, that this is more than 3/4, obviously. Moving on, Donald Trump has consolidated support among the 2020 Republican primary voters, according to the latest national survey conducted by Big Data Poll for February. The former president is dominating former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley by 60.6%, or 75.4 to 14.8. Only 4.9 chose someone else, and another 4.9 remained undecided. Before I go into my own little quote-unquote, you may go to the Decision Desk national polling average for the Republican primary. And also, by the way, go actually even more relevant, go for the general election. And while others last week were putting up like Trump 1, Trump +2, we had ours, which was Trump +6. You may go up there and notice right now that there's another Trump +5 and another Trump +6. So once again, we let it off. I think what happened is that we got in and collected when Joe Biden had a really bad day and a really bad week, and we picked it up first. As I've said it all cycle, and I'll say it again. This is and has always been the least competitive primary for a presidential nomination in modern memory. Several commentators and pundits persisted on making the argument that an alternative candidate could compete with the frontrunner if they waited out a once fractured field until it was one-on-one. Well, it's one-on-one now, and President Trump is trouncing the alternative candidate. The 24 Republican field winnowed down after the Iowa caucuses on January 15th. Businessman Vivek Ramaswamy immediately announced he was suspending his campaign the night of the caucuses. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis suspended his campaign 10 days after, coming in a distant second behind the 45th president. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie dropped out before New Hampshire, a development thought to have helped Ambassador Haley. Mr. Ramaswamy endorsed the frontrunner immediately and appeared with him in the Granite State. Governor DeSantis ultimately endorsed him as well. Since the prior national survey conducted by Big Data Poll, President Trump's lead grew by 13.4%, widening from 52.9%. Ambassador Haley gained just 5 points from 9.8. And there's the trend. If you want to look at it, you can click on it and you can see. Actually, let me show you real quick. There it is. So the consolidation argument, it was like 2016 all over again. And it wasn't even true in 2016. Although the argument was stronger back then, it ended up not being true. Yet some people, Mark Thiessen and many others, persisted on doing this. They didn't seem to understand how statistics work. You don't get every single voter to transpose onto another candidate when the field winnows. And you should have known that by all of the polls that asked, who is your second choice? The truth is, for months now, nationally, in Iowa, in New Hampshire, South Carolina, everywhere, nationally is relevant here. 80% or plus would say Trump was their first or second choice. That's been going on for months. But get this. While President Trump's margin over Ambassador Haley among Republican primary voters is slightly less, 1.7%, than President Joe Biden's margin over Representative Dean Phillips, Democrat, Minnesota, among Democrat primary voters, Republicans are more consolidated behind the former president than Democrats are behind their current. President Biden leads Phillips by 62.3%, or 69.5 to 7.2. That's lower than Trump's support. So while his lead is 1.7% bigger than Trump's lead over Haley, he has less support among his own party. Sizable percentages of Democratic voters still tell us they want someone else. 10.4 and another 13%, even more, remain undecided. We don't know the results of Iowa yet. They'll be announced on Super Tuesday. It's a mail-in caucus on the Democratic side. That's not a caucus then, by definition. Don't let them do what they just did to you. They don't let them do to you what they just did to me. Don't call it a caucus. It's not a caucus. It's a very corruptible mail-in vote election. There's no difference. Primary. A caucus is, there's a definition of a caucus. That is not it. And we'll find out how he did in Iowa. But in New Hampshire, he put up one of the most pathetic performances for an incumbent president, even as a write-in, I don't give a damn, that we have seen in modern history. And we went over it at the time. South Carolina, yes, was obviously very dominant, but we don't have any benchmark on turnout because Democrats normally cancel their South Carolina primary for incumbent presidents. They don't hold it. So we don't have much to gauge it against. We just don't. We can't measure it against empirical data because we really don't have any. Not much. So the polling suggests that like the New Hampshire curse is not gone. Why does this matter? That 13% who are undecided, you don't think they should be decided by now? It's a sitting president. When Trump was president, this didn't happen to him. When Obama was president, he had some of this happen to him, but it was in certain places because of the realignment. Remember what happened in West Virginia, Arkansas? But it wasn't this big. It was an isolated issue that he had. The New Hampshire standard, which tells you whether you have a problem with your base or not if you're a sitting president, Obama was right up there with Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton. Not, so much with totals, but with percentages of the vote, he got about 8 and 10. Anything below 8 and 10 is a problem. By the way, Trump got higher than him, and yet Trump still supposedly lost his general election. This tells me these people are just not they are not interested at all. 10%, someone else. There is no one else. It's not going to happen. You know what they're hoping for. I don't like to say things out loud. You know I don't. Words have power, and I believe it 100%. But folks, you know what they're hoping for. Come on, locals. We've had this conversation before. Deep down, yup, that's right. Deep down, they are hoping that, and then they don't have to deal with Joe Biden. 100%. 100%. All right. And then there is what, it comes down to that undecided amount. I mean, will they come out and vote for you if you can't excite them like this? We'll see. We'll see. Yep. Something along those lines. Looks like the locals chat and the the locals chat has it down pretty well. They get it. They understand what I'm talking about. So does YouTube. They get it. Meanwhile, we have to do this. Should I show Bevin? Let me see. Let's see. Yeah. I like his commentary on it, so let's do it. Let me bring up good old Tom here. Yeah, I mean, there you go. Chris Christie will could vote for Joe Biden, but not Donald Trump. Here's something I want to just say about this, because you're looking at the data right now, the primary data. All right. And the fact of the matter is, these people have not voted for Donald Trump in these general elections. I don't care what anyone has to say. They have not done it. The data is not there. The data suggests that there's a ton of Republicans on TV and in the establishment that have been claiming for years that they are Republicans, but they are not. And in the Trump era, they voted for Hillary Clinton. They voted for Joe Biden. You're not losing anyone because Chris Christie says he's going to vote for Joe Biden, but he definitely won't vote for Donald Trump. You're not losing anyone when Nikki Haley says, I don't know if I could support. These people are espousing the same policy platforms and positions as the Democratic Party now. So you're not going to lure any Republican away. It's just not, the data's not there, guys. When we ask Republicans, what are you going to do if Nikki Haley's not the nominee? And they say, or I would say Republican primary voters, and they say, well, I could vote for another candidate. And I'm going to show you that in a second. And then you look at who these people are and you go through their vote history. You go through, that's why I put these tooltips up for you guys to look at. When you go through all of that stuff, you'll realize that they're not really Republicans at all. Very, very few of them are. Very few of them are. And by the way, for those who don't know, only 36% said that they would vote for the party's nominee, Nikki Haley's voters. 29% said they would consider voting for the Democratic nominee. 21% said that they would consider voting for the third party nominee. 12% said they would write in Nikki Haley, and 2% said they wouldn't vote at all. Meanwhile, when we really do compare those people to those who we lean later or whatever, in the split ballot, yeah, some of them do break away from Trump and go to like, another candidate. But for the most part, if they're Republicans, they vote for Trump. You know it, you can see it. He's got 90% of his own base, slightly over already in our polling. Joe Biden is in the high 80s still, mid to high 80s. That's a problem. That is a problem. And they know it's a problem. Let's get real. So my point is, it's a very small, statistically insignificant number, and the alignment is happening. The realignment is happening. Nikki Haley will be a Democrat. Here's the kicker, though. And I'm going to show you one of these things in a second. I just want to show you something from Tom. Well, I guess I could show you that first. Here's the kicker. The kicker is this isn't going to end how she thinks it's going to end. We have seen this before in the past. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to support him. What does that mean when you say you're not going to support the candidate? It means you're a liar and nobody can trust you. Voters aren't stupid. Voters aren't stupid. They know when someone is being an ambitious, dishonest, who cannot be trusted. They know that. So the bottom line is they'll think to themselves, if I can't trust you to keep your word when it comes to, all right, boss, I'll never run against you, boss, right? If they can't trust you to keep their word on that, and you know what, before we even show this, let me show the other one. If they can't trust you to keep your word to your former boss and supposed friend, if you can't keep your word to your peers and certainly people who are your friends, Tim Scott was our friend. If you can't keep your word to your party, though, that you claim to be a part of, then you sure as hell will not keep your word to the voter. And voters are not dumb. So as I play this, I'm going to show you something else after, and then we're going to talk about where this is going to end up for Nikki Haley. And it's not going to end up how she thinks it's going to end up. I'm going to tell you exactly what will become of Nikki Haley.
Well, I think this primary is so important.
So we're just about out of time, but I've got to ask you, you had said earlier in this process that you will support Donald Trump if he wins the Republican nomination. But since you made that pledge, he has encouraged NATO, he encouraged Russia, said he would encourage Russia to do whatever the hell it wants with a NATO ally. Ridiculous. You have called him diminished, unhinged, unfit for office.
Okay, let me just say too, it's funny that John Carl is the one doing the interview, because John Carl has been handpicked. It was months and months and months ago, actually a long time ago, more before months and months. It's been longer than that, over a year, I think, by Democrats to aggregate instances where, according to him, Trump has displayed cognitive decline, and he, wants to write a book. I think his book is out now, isn't it? Right. So John Carl has been used willingly by the DNC to try to neutralize the issue of Joe Biden's mental fitness, or lack of, is really a better way to put it. And he's been aggregating stories of where Donald Trump says things that are just bizarre, off the wall, or either he's like crazy, something's wrong with him, or that he himself is getting old and no longer is as sharp as he once was. So it's ironic they have John Carl in. And by the way, they don't tell their viewers this. ABC doesn't tell their viewers this. Just like they never told their viewers about all the conversations between, them and George Stephanopoulos and the DNC emails. NBC and MSNBC didn't tell anybody about the conversations between Chuck Todd and so many others, and the DNC collaborating with Jake Tapper at CNN and his producers on what they're going to ask the two top Republican candidates for the presidential nomination in 16. We're going to catch them in we're going to slip them up. What do you want us to say and do about, on foreign policy to slip them up? Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, of course. I mean, people never know about these disgusting relationships until somebody independent reports on them. Otherwise, the people and the viewers and the readers would never know. How many op-eds you've read, folks, from people who are in on this plot with Nikki Haley to dirty up Republican, to sabotage Republicans. Let's put it that way. How many people you've read op-eds from? How many pundits, so-called pundits and commentators and surrogates that you've seen on panels? Not just these people. Fox News. Fox News is filled with Nikki neocons and Democratic neolibs that are in on it. And you never hear about these relationships, which obviously clouds their judgment, obviously informs what they're saying to the audience. This is unbelievable. That stuff is like, this is not disclosed to the viewers and the readers. It takes someone like me to come along and tell you that John Carl is a stooge. A total stooge who is picked by Democrats to try to neutralize it's not even an issue. It's a vulnerability of the current Democratic president. To raise questions about Trump's fitness so as to neutralize questions surrounding Joe Biden's. But you wouldn't know that until I told you. Just like you wouldn't know with all the reporting from Michael Schellenberger right now that Judge Napolitano was fired from Fox News by telling you what Michael Schellenberger is reporting right now, that President Barack Obama himself and the Vice President Joe Biden himself at the time asked our allies and their intelligence service in Great Britain to spy on then candidate Donald Trump without a warrant, then President-elect Donald Trump without a warrant. And Judge Napolitano told everybody this during the height of Russia, the hoax, and they removed him from Fox News. He was only allowed to come back on because he agreed to be Shep Smith's bitch and be an anti-Trump analyst. And then it went from, this is a ludicrous conspiracy and it's treason, it's sedition they're doing against Trump. He went from that to, the walls are closing in every 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And you would never know because nobody would ever tell you if the People's Pundit did not have a podcast where he told you this. And Michael Schellenberger didn't have a Substack where he reported this. So it's like only independent voices will ever let you know this stuff. Let's play this clip more.
Are you still making that pledge that you would actually support, after all of that, Donald Trump for president of the United States if he beats you for the Republican nomination?
I mean, keep in mind, I am running against him.
No, I know.
For a reason. I'm running against him because I don't think he should be I don't think he's the right person at the right time. I don't think he should be president. The last thing on my mind is who I'm going to support. The only thing on my mind is how we're going to win this. The only thing on my mind is how we're going to make sure that we correct what's happening in America and we bring this country back together, allow her to heal and move on in a strong way.
This woman has no sense of loyalty whatsoever. Not to a former boss who made you. You were broke. You begged him to let you go. You begged him to resign, not because she didn't want to break away. This is another thing. This should be in the headlines. I shouldn't be the one telling you this. Let me tell you what really happened. She was broke. Her family was broke. Her kids were broke. And she needed money. She needed to go. I'm going to refrain from that so Laura doesn't yell at me. She needed to go on her knees to the military industrial complex and ask them for a cushy job with a lot of money and selling influence because she needed money, but she didn't want to leave the Trump administration in a bad way. She wanted a positive break because she has always wanted to run for president. She has been telling some of good friends of mine that are Republican donors, folks, she has been telling them that she is running for president for years, since before Donald Trump was defeated by Joe Biden. She's been in my friends' living rooms. Oh, yes, I'm going to run for president, and I want to start this relationship with you now. But in order to get that clean break from the administration, she told President Trump that she would not run against him. And yet she broke that pledge. She signed a contract with the Republican National Committee that she would support whomever the nominee was. And yet here she is refusing to do that. And then, of course, we have the other issues of loyalty or fidelity. And her kid on Twitter, instead of being embarrassed for his father, is attacking Tim Scott. Why? Because Tim Scott does not believe his mother is the right person for the job. You want to be VP? Maybe he does. So what? He could have been VP for Nikki Haley. He obviously doesn't think your mother is the right person for the job. I'm telling you, I'd be humiliated.
I'm not thinking about who I'm going to support in an election.
But you've already said it.
We are going to have a female president of the United States. It will either be me or it will be Kamala Harris. And if Donald Trump is the nominee for the Republican Party, he will not win. Every poll shows that he will not.
Okay, she's still citing. I'm so glad she brought that up. She's still citing 3-month-old polls because that's what she's going to do right now, to talk about how she's ahead in the Wall Street Journal poll by 17 points. Okay. In the national polling, there are some polls due to methodological issues, which they refuse to acknowledge, that are constantly only talking to traditional high propensity voters. That is why, because of the realignment, by the way, we talked about this with special elections on Friday, same dynamic that's happening here. If you're only using the New York Times methodology, if you're only using the Wall Street Journal methodology, then you're going to get those crappy results. But even CNN and Fox News are showing you, like we're showing you, and showing you like everybody else is showing you, that when you have mixed mode that reaches those lower propensity voters, those less high interest voters, you will see that she is not at all strong. She is not nearly as strong as those national polls suggest. How could she be ahead by 17 points and 15 points nationally if she can't even carry Texas? The University of Texas this morning released a poll, and she is down by 6 points to Joe Biden. Or 9. Is it 9 or 6? 9! 9 points! Fox News, 8 points in Georgia. North Carolina, the University of Eastern North Carolina, ECU. She's down in North Carolina. Wisconsin, Fox News. Michigan. If she cannot carry these battleground states, she's not ahead like that nationally. And by the way, most national polls don't show her anywhere near with a lead like she keeps reciting. We're talking about unbelievable levels of this unbelievable disparity is really a better way to put this. Oh my God. Hey, look at this, Laura. Live in Monmouth, New Jersey. Rich, you know the area well. Absolutely. Stone's throw from Asbury. Over the last month, I've worn my MAGA hoodie, and without fail, every time I've received positive comments or nods of approval. I'm telling you, I think that's New York has like a MAGA presence, like on the ground. Like there are people even who work for like Elise Stefanik, and many of them watch the show, but there's MAGA in New York. New Jersey doesn't have a MAGA influence yet. And if they did, I would expect that New York would be throwing a lot of the same signals that you would see in New Jersey. I'm not saying you can carry it, but man, you can make it closer. And maybe you can one day. How bad was that tweet, Robert? Oh my God. 12 fellas down, 1 to go, she tweets. I kid you not, Laura. I don't know if you saw that because you've been with Bree all weekend. Oh my God. Even Big and Rich was like John Rich. He's like, I don't think you understand how that sounds. Anyway, let's go back to the clip.
Not win, and we will have a President Kamala Harris. I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm not stopping. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to do this for the long haul, and we're going to finish it.
Does that mean you will not support him if he's the Republican nominee?
That means I'm going to run and I'm going to win. And y'all can talk about support later. Right now, you can.
Okay, there is such a thing as a candidate not wanting to do that. You don't want to admit that you're not going to be the nominee, right? It kills momentum, blah, blah. She doesn't have momentum. There's no momentum to kill here. Her momentum died when she failed to even get within single digits in New Hampshire, a state that she and her team and the governor of New Hampshire absolutely believed she was going to win by getting all those behavioral Democrats to vote in the primary. But because Donald Trump is a turnout machine, a turnout monster, he broke Bernie Sanders' record. He got more than 12% of the entire population of the state of New Hampshire to vote for him in a Republican primary. They got had by MAGA. They thought they had 10 points off the polling gone. They did. So when they were getting Trump plus 10s, they're like, we can do this. We can beat that with all these Democrats coming out to vote for us. 74% of her vote, folks, in Hanover is Democratic vote. Upwards of 40% of her entire statewide vote is a Democratic vote. Not because they like Nikki Haley, but because she sent them 800 text messages and bombarded them with mailers. You hate Trump. You hate Trump. You hate Trump. Vote for me. You hate Trump. And people were telling me that I'm somehow making this up. And just a couple of weeks ago, the campaign had been denying this hand over fist, right? Denying this. That's not true. We're doing no such thing. Okay. What's this? Here is one of like 8 mailers that a friend of ours got who lives in South Carolina, pegging her as a Democrat, trying to get her to vote in the Republican primary. She's received a jillion text messages to boot. Did you get our mailer? Did you read it? Did you see? You can vote for us, you know. Don't let Trump win this. She's basically telling Democrats that they have an alternative from Joe Biden and Dean Phillips, who actually is a viable candidate, and that is Nikki Haley. It's disgustingly desperate, Eric. Disgustingly desperate. But it's more than that. It's sinister. Because until they've been busted by me and others, until they've been busted, they were denying this ever happened. Everyone is eligible to vote in the February 24th South Carolina Republican primary. If you didn't vote in the Democrat primary, the Republican presidential primary is far from over. Don't sit this election out. You have a clear choice between Donald Trump or Nikki Haley. Use your voice by voting for Nikki Haley on February 24th. These are going to Democrats. A couple of weeks ago, flashback to a week, 2 weeks before New Hampshire. Us talking about this. And then pretending like this wasn't happening. Again, doing a whole segment on it. We did multiple on them. We're going to talk about this more in the future, but the damage this is going to do to Republican data, the longer it goes, suffice it to say, the longer it goes on, the more damage it's going to do and the more money it's going to cost. Because when those people vote in a Republican primary, your choice, if you don't want to waste your money If you don't want the door knockers getting the door slammed in their face, if you don't want to waste all of that money on text messages, whatever you idiots are paying for text messages these days, which, because you're new to the game and you're only using right-wing text messaging firms that cost you a fortune. If you don't want to waste that, if you don't want to waste all the money on digital targeting, if you don't want to waste 70 grand to 150 grand on mailers that are going to get shredded up, your only other option is to remove people who have that primary vote indicator from their voter record and basically exclude them from your query when you run through the database, pull a list. The problem with that is you are going to exclude new voters that are true voters. So what does it take to do this? A lot of money and time. It's going to take at least 2 cycles to monitor that vote behavior to see whether or not they need to be removed. Unbelievable damage that people don't understand that's happening because of practicality of this, how logistically how this works. But anyway, let me just say this in a nutshell before we move on to President's Day stuff. Nikki Haley thinks this is going to what? Build up her bona fides with the Democratic Party and she's going to be some kind of Democrat hero or something? Because she will be a Democrat. I mean, the most likely outcome as of now is that Donald Trump defeats Joe Biden in November and Nikki Haley has no home anymore in the Republican Party and she announces she's a Democrat. And by the way, she will have voted for the Democratic candidate twice already. Because there's no chance she voted for Donald Trump in 2020. No chance. Guarantee you, all of these people, folks, that we've talked about, if there was a way to dig up their ballots and look at who they voted for, I am telling you, statistically, it is almost a certainty that these people voted for Joe Biden. They're not in the data. They're not there. Anyway, that's not how it's going to end for her. If that's what she thinks, she's sorely mistaken. That has never happened. She's not the first person to try to do some kind of crazy thing to stab her own party in the back or her own nominee in the back and then end up some hero of the other party. She will end up like Charlie Crist. Despised and distrusted by voters from both parties and thought of as a joke by the party that they think will receive them with open arms. She will be a pariah, a leper. Nobody will want to touch her. No, I was going to say it. I stopped it for you, babe. Nobody would touch her with someone else's. Got it? She will be persona non grata. John Wick lovers. Excommunicado. Okay? She will be nothing. And that is her future. Her future is nothing. She could be, she could end up on Boeing. I mean, this is why it is, again, so crucial. Republicans, if they care, the election of one man, a revolution does not make. And I have said this over and over again. The neocons and the neoliberals will always be waiting in the wings, waiting to grab a hold of some part of some party. There is no difference between Nikki Haley and Hillary Clinton. Did you hear Hillary Clinton's comments in Germany about NATO and Donald Trump? It's indistinguishable from Nikki Haley's. But Democrats are not going to trust her with, embrace her with open arms. She'll have no choice but to wait around and hope and pray that her allies can infiltrate MAGA the way that they did the Tea Party. Remember, this woman rode into South Carolina as the insurgent candidate who was Tea Party aligned. Remember that. Langford, Adam Kinzinger. These people played Tea Party. And look at who they really were. Is there one single example of a Democrat that you know of in the Senate or the House right now that rode in under the AOC banner and ended up being a traitor to AOC? Is there one that you could point out? No, there's not. Not a single one. Not one. All of the once true moderates are gone. They're gone. Manchin was basically the last of them. He's finished. And even those who were removed and defeated and they're out of here, they sit on, panels on CNN and MSNBC, and somehow they went from being fair-minded moderates to radicals just so they could get that position on that show. Republicans, no such cause. Yeah, but Sinema's not a moderate. Right, exactly. Sinema is not a moderate. She's only being an independent because she's trying to recreate the John McCain Maverick persona for Arizona. That's it. She's not a moderate. Never was. Radical fanatic. She was a fanatical leftist with crazy ideas, socially and economically. But she's shrewd. She's a shrewd politician. And when those votes didn't fly in the Democratic Party, she got booted. She didn't really leave the Democratic Party. She still caucuses with them. But they will not allow her to carry their brand. Because she may stink up their brand when it comes to their base. And they just can't have that shit. You got to give it to them, guys. It's like, I don't understand why some people can't get beyond insulting their political opponents or even enemies. Why it's somehow treason to recognize that your opponents are smarter than you. You hear this with Putin all the time. Hey, you're such a Putin lover. No, I'm terrified that Vladimir Putin is far smarter than my president ever was before his brain went to mush. I'm terrified that he was able to do laps around Barack Obama, who was supposed to be some kind of genius. I got my last, and I'm up for my last election next year, and we'll do a lot more, and then we'll be able to, I won't have to care about being reelected. I'll transmit that information to Vladimir for you. Oh, Laura, off topic.
No,
All right, so
it's about Obama with saying he wouldn't mind a fake president so he could pull the strings and all that.
oh yeah, well, he's got that
Mhm.
now. He's
Yeah,
got that
that's what
now.
I'm saying.
I mean, that's the truth. The kicker is, though, the truth is there really is two teams, and there is Team Obama and there is Team Biden. But Team Biden is outnumbered. They're outnumbered. So it's kind of like how the same problem President Trump ran into. When President Biden got in there, yes, he had his team around him, and you had Ronnie and all these others, but the problem was they are all, if they're not loyal to Obama, they're outnumbered by people who are loyal to Obama. So if you want to staff your White House, it's going to be filled with Obama loyalists. There's nothing you can do about it. That's why if you're a Republican, you should be praising God that Trump now for 2 years has been plotting this comeback, or more, actually. And he's got it down. Not only the Office of Personnel Management, but many, many other plans they put in to seize control of the executive branch without having to worry about all these traitors and backstabbers the way he did last time. They have those plans. Well, I'll leave that alone, actually. All right, so here's Tom, our good friend Tom Bevan on Twitter. All right, Tom over at Real Clear Politics put up this study. Every year we have the stupid poll of academics. Fewer times during the year do we have an example, and I know I'm coming up on the hour break, but fewer times in a year do we have a greater, better, more appropriate example of elites being completely disconnected from reality and from the rest of the country than the presidential poll, where a bunch of academics get together and rank the presidents on who is and who is not the greatest to the worst president. You will be stunned to hear that once again, Donald Trump is the worst president, according to the Ivory Tower. Joe Biden is ranked above a couple notable people. And if you have not seen this, prepare to shit your pants. Okay? Here we are. Oh, yes. Joe Biden is at number 14. He is ahead of Woodrow Wilson, who they used to think is beloved. He's ahead of Ronald Reagan. He's ahead of Monroe. He's ahead of Ulysses S. Grant, Andrew Jackson. I kid you not. Van Buren, Gerald Ford are all ahead of Trump, who is ranked dead last. Patrick Buchanan is above Donald Trump. By the way, Tyler is an underrated president. Nixon, of course, is 35. Calvin Coolidge, 34. These were great presidents. Nixon was a great president. He just got in the way of the deep state and they took him out. Nixon is a freaking Boy Scout compared to Barack Obama and Joe Biden. A Boy Scout. A break-in. Ooh. Oh, what a criminal. Compared to Barack Obama, targeting Americans through their taxes because of their ideology, using the Logan Act, that was Joe Biden's idea, but nevertheless under Barack Obama, to go after Michael Flynn, something that's never used. Joe Biden persecuting his political opponents. And by the way, if I have to hear one more person bitch and moan about Navalny, I'm going to throw up. What about Matt DePerno? He's dead. Yeah, they didn't kill him. He killed himself because he knew, along with at least 5 others, by the way, who were charged with January 6 crimes, that they didn't stand a chance in hell in that district. Joe Biden has driven his political opponents to suicide. Barack Obama murdered Anwar al-Awlaki. I don't give a damn what you think he was. A couple of years before Barack Obama droned his ass, he was George W. Bush, who's number 32, by the way, above Donald Trump. The biggest foreign policy blunder in U.S. history. Al-Awlaki was GW's boy. They invited him to State Department events. He was Muslim outreach. And yet somehow, in a span of a few months, they turned him into public enemy number 1. All evidence suggests that Anwar al-Awlaki was not a radical when George Bush was using him and reaching out to him. What did they do to him? I don't know who needs to be asked this. Do you think he somehow went above? What did they do to Anwar al-Awlaki that turned him into what he is and was? And even if it is all true, I don't give a shit. He's a U.S. citizen. You arrest him and you bring him in for a trial. You do not murder him and his 14-year-old cousin sitting next to him in the pickup truck because you dub him a terrorist. Half the people watching the show right now could be drone striked using that justification. This stream could go dark right now. Rich is gone, vaporized, along with his 3 children who were home on President's Day and his lovely wife of almost 20 years. Collateral damage. Rich was a terrorist. Rich was a domestic pollster terrorist. Anyway, these people every year do this. And yet, Gallup, they find very, 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 very different results. Gallup ranks presidents. Gallup puts, who do you respect more? Who do you think was a better leader? According to Gallup and the American people, by the way, they have Obama number 7. Do you believe this? They have Franklin Delano Roosevelt ahead of George Washington. At least they got Teddy up at number 4. Jefferson, number 5. Harry Truman, who dropped 2 atomic bombs on the people of Japan. And I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, like, think about how their minds work. Ronald Reagan, who successfully led us out of not only the Cold War, but the doldrums of a malaise from the Jimmy Carter administration. Americans feeling like the American dream is gone. They quit on themselves. They quit on their families. They quit on the dream. They quit on their nation. They quit on they quit on life. How many of you were alive back then like me? It was a spirit of renewal. I had grown-ass adults tell me, thank God you were born during Ronald Reagan. And I was born right as Reagan took the reins. Unbelievable. And again, it goes to show you how much they really know about history. Tyler, number 37. Do you know who Tyler was? Tyler took Texas. Tyler ran the country pretty well. Bill O'Reilly, actually. Listen, I'm not a huge fan of pimping people's books, and especially not people who made millions of dollars off of books and don't need me to pimp it for them. But Bill O'Reilly has written some fantastic stuff about Tyler. And I think you would find it to be a lot different than what you heard in the history books. I'm serious. Ironically enough, at least the Washington Examiner covered it. You have this stupid survey out today, yet when you have all of these polls from the American public saying something very different. Donald Trump is the fastest recovering former president in modern history. In other words, a president who left office with negatives. He is the fastest recovering president in modern history. YouGov, for the first time, just had Trump's favorability +1. ABC News, Langer Research, Langer conducts the ABC News Washington Post poll. They spiked his results because the last one was Trump +10 in November, and they didn't want you to see whatever the hell he got last time when Joe Biden's approval rating was the lowest ever and his unfavorable was the highest ever. So you can only imagine what the general election poll said, and that they did not show you. They hid from you. And by the way, my offer still stands. I will give $5,000 to the employee at either ABC News or Washington Post who gives me those results. Or by the way, Gary, that offer's up for you too. I'll give you $5,000, Gary, if you give me that. I kid you not. Contact me, contact Laura, Proton Mail, whatever you need. I got you. You give me those results, helping me prove what I already know to be true, and I will give you $5,000. And that's negotiable. Meanwhile, Rasmussen reports, in knowing full well, of course, that this was coming, just a few days ago during President's Day, asked the following question. A majority of voters, and I'll read this, and then we're going to look at their crosstabs because it's actually really, really interesting. Am I logged in? I am. Need platinum to see what I want to show you. A majority of voters view former President Donald Trump's term in office as a success, even as they consider President Joe Biden's time in the White House a failure. Yes, all the data, Laura's saying. Yes, that $5,000, we need it all. Because you got to prove to me that it's true. And I also need the data to go through to make sure that there wasn't anything wrong with the poll. Because I'm telling you what ABC is going to do is say that they didn't spike it because they were trying to be dishonest. They spiked it because there was something wrong with the results and they didn't want to mislead people. That's what they're going to say. I already know. I've been through this with media outlets before. By the way, Brick House Nutrition, fantastic company. You see the ads right there because like I tell you all the time, Laura and I are actually customers. We don't only pitch it on the show. We are actually customers. What is the promo code for Brick House, Laura? You want to get it for me? I can give them a promo code right now. It depends what you get. If it is Field of Greens, then it is, and I'm going to find it right here so Laura doesn't have to bother. I know I have this, Laura. Here we go. Yep. Thank you. Field of Greens is promo code TPP. And then if you want Force, which I love Force, it is Boost PP, which I asked them to change. Boost PP, Boost People's Pundit, right? So it's all one word though. So that will get you 15% off. They're fantastic products. I'm actually waiting for some to come in the mail again. So anyway, Not Field of Greens. I stacked up on Field of Greens, boy. Anyway, the latest National Rasmussen Reports telephone survey online as well says that 40% of likely voters believe that Biden's term in office so far has been successful, including 9% who thinks Biden's presidency has been a complete success. 58% view his presidency as unsuccessful, including 40% who deem it a failure, a complete failure. It's remarkable. Gallup has Trump above Obama right now. I kid you not. Not when it comes to like approval from the past or favorability, as far as who do you think was a better leader? And it's not particularly close. Trump is like 42. Obama's at like 20. YouGov just asked Republican voters who do you think was the best Republican president? And Trump was tied with Reagan. Next year, because they ask it every year, next year, Trump is going to surpass Reagan. Why? Generational change. Looking back on Trump's 4 years in office, 56% of voters consider his presidency successful, including 22% who say it was a complete success. 42% see the Trump presidency as unsuccessful, including 28% who believe it was a complete failure. And by the way, from this very same day, they had Biden's approval rating 3 points higher than the Real Clear Politics average. 740 U.S. likely voters conducted February 5th through the 7th, sampling error 3% plus or minus. While both Democratic voters and Republican voters overwhelmingly view their own party's president as successful, independent voters view Trump's presidency as more successful than Biden's by a 19-point margin. That's funny. That's exactly how much Donald Trump is leading Joe Biden by in our poll when you add leaners in among independents. 88% of Republicans believe Trump's term in the White House was successful. 69% of Democrats think so far that Biden's has been successful. So as you can see, much like what we have identified in the primary polling, Biden has people in his own party who don't like him. This is a very real thing for Joe Biden, and I'm telling you, that can result in lower turnout, even in the era of mail-in balloting, folks. Why? Because you still need people who are willing to go out and do that. When they knock on the door, somebody may just say, you know what? I voted for him in 2020 because I really didn't want Trump, but man, the guy's just, he's lost me. No, you can't have my ballot. I'll drop it off if I want to. Among voters not affiliated with either major party, it is 53 to 34. All right. It's also remarkable that a significantly larger number of Democrats view Biden as an unsuccessful president compared to the number of Republicans who say the same of Trump. And you can see this in Gallup too, by the way. Who's the better leader? It's just because Obama and Trump were not the only ones in that survey. Trump was significantly ahead. And that was because of more independents choosing him and a higher share of Republicans just being completely lockstep behind him. When other Democrats were like, Biden, I guess. And somebody's like, oh, the hell with Biden. I'm going with Obama. And I mean, Biden was low. I forgot what he was. I'd have to go look it up. I'll look it up on the break, but he was way low. If someone's got that, they're more than welcome to pop it in the comment section and share it with everybody, if you know what I'm talking about. But Biden was not even close. And absolutely, Richard Nixon was a deep state casualty. The guy was beloved for a reason. He is unfortunately a casualty of revisionist history. And there was post-presidency plans to fight what he knew would be this would happen. However, his memoirs were just not going to do it. And that's ultimately what he thought he would do. And it's sad. And then he did the Frost Nixon interview. And he said what he said famously. Where the president does it, he's not a crook. Even though what Richard Nixon was saying is something that has been the policy of the Justice Department forever. He was simply reiterating the damn memo that Mark Levin has read 1,000,000 times on his radio show. Voters under 40 are least likely to consider President Trump's presidency a complete success, while those that are age 40 to 46 are the most likely to view Biden's as a complete failure. That's a good thing. Why? If you're a Republican, that's a good thing. Or if you're a Trumper. Because the boomers are almost out, guys. This will probably be the last presidential election if turnout rates remain roughly on par. This will likely be the last presidential election where boomers are the largest share of the electorate. Once upon a time, it was seniors. We all know how that went and why that went the way it did. They're out now. The World War, the Greatest Generation was the largest. Now they're like 20%, 19 to 25% on high. Maybe 28 if it's really bad turnout among other groups. Boomers are 35, roughly to about 40% when they're really the chunk of it. That's going soon. That'll be phased out. And that prime working class age group, 40 to 49, that we have looked at with a magnifying glass lately, that age group is going to become increasingly important. Generation X is going to become increasingly important. Which is why you're an idiot if you believe that Republicans should go back to the party of 2014, Noah Rothman. You're stupid. What's your plan for the future? It's like drug addict mentality. Trust me, I know. It's only how do you get through this day? What about tomorrow? I don't know. Tomorrow's tomorrow. Those voters, they're just not there, right? They're not there. And they're not going to learn it unless they learn it the hard way. And the problem with that is that you just don't have time for that lesson to be learned. By the way, they spent millions of dollars trying to teach themselves that they're on that lesson on their own after 2012. They did a whole autopsy. MAGA is the coalition that they aspired to and was the prescription in the autopsy. So the real problem is not the coalition, is it? The real problem is that they're not the head of it. That's the real problem. The scam is over. The grift is over. Rush was right about that, man. He's speaking of Rush again. He was totally right about that. As long as these people are around, this is never going to end. This realignment's never going to end. We talked about this on Book Club yesterday. And by the way, we talked about it the week before as well. They play rope-a-dope. The establishment plays rope-a-dope. They pretend like they're getting beat on the ropes, like it's like Ali versus Foreman. And Tea Party's wailing away. But they're just playing rope-a-dope. They have a remarkable way to hold on because the base doesn't put them away. Listen, Democrats put their establishment away. Their base is the establishment now. Republicans, you're not there yet. You're not. It's time to put them out to pasture. Otherwise, you're going to lose this in the long term. We're going to read on the end of the break. We're going to read something. We always talk about votes, but I want to talk about dollars. When we talk about Republicans post-Trump problems, we always talk about votes and voters and get out the vote, and that's true, and that's great. I want to talk about dollars when we come back, all right? Right after our friends from Jam and Bean. Listen, look, they're making a tea lover out of me. They really are. They're making a tea lover out of me. I'm looking forward to tea time. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm still type A and, I'm crazy, but I'm loving tea. Loving it. Whether you sign up for tea or coffee subscription, whatever it is that you need to get through your day, like me, use the promo code TPP40 at checkout when you sign up for a new subscription at Jam and Bean. When you do, you're going to get 40% off right off the rip. And yet every month when it renews, you are still going to get 10% off that subscription. So it's unbelievable that this promo is still going. We love them for it. Their gourmet popcorn is to die for. As you can clearly see, they are patriots galore. Send me what your feedback is. We love to hear it. Jam and Bean is a fan favorite over here. We always say that there are no heroes during COVID in the political class. Yes, some behave better than others, but they are not the heroes. The heroes were the average citizens who pushed back on Fauciism. The heroes were the average businessmen and job creators, like the guys at Jam and Bean, who said, no, I have a right to make a living. They are the heroes. Promo code TPP40 at jamandbean.com. All right, thanks, Laura. Let's okay. You know what? I am going to take a couple of second break here, just to take a break. But while we're at it, take like 30 seconds. Just want to drink of water and whatnot. When we come back, again, like I said, we're always talking about the get out the vote and the voters, that specific targeted voters that Trump brings out, that the Republicans have got to get on the voter rolls and to participate, because once he's off the ballot, that opportunity is over, and Democrats will beat you with their high propensity coalition every time. Every time. So you need to change that. And you need to counteract that, negate the impact of them having the advantage that you once had. How did Democrats do it? By getting out those low propensity voters. Republicans bite their nails, like I say all the time, bite their nails every night. Oh, God, I hope black people didn't vote. Oh, God, I hope young people didn't vote. That's pathetic. That's sad-ass stuff. Don't you want to be in a position where it's like, oh, God, look at the turnout. We're going to crush these SOBs. That's the way you should be thinking. But you can't do it without something called money. And Republicans' problems in a post-Trump era do not end at the voter. That is for damn sure. Let's take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll do more. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the video if you like it. Share it far and wide. Does a lot of help. You have no idea. Of course, subscribe. Sign up right now. The best place to follow us on what we're doing is on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. I'm not sure how I would do the live polling stuff. We're going to do some tests soon. It's going to be cool. I'm not sure how I would do it for anyone outside of Locals. So if you want to be a part of that, you got to sign up for Locals. All right. What else? That's it. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Oh, no, that's not it. Laura has dinged me 10 times. 2:05, Human Events, Jack Posobiec today. As soon as we're off here, I'm going to run over to Human Events, and I'm going to do an interview with Jack Posobiec about our polling. So jump on over there, all right? And we'll see you there. Don't miss out. All right, 30-second break. 30 seconds. I needed a 30-second break. We're back. All right. Oh, yes. And you said yes to that? Okay. So we'll do it. And then what time is that, though, Laura? Give me the time. And I'll also be on Gorka's show today. I think it's 4 or 4:30. Laura will give me the 4 o'clock. So we'll see you on Gorka at 4 as well. All right. Great analysis by Derek over at the Decision Desk. And I wanted to pop this up and show you that I always read Derek's newsletter because he's got the coolest thing about like ads that go out. Not ads, fundraising emails. And he aggregates them and he always has some funny thing to say about them. This week, it's RFKs. However, taking a look at the fundraising data overall, Derek absolutely sees what we see, which is that Republicans can't raise $1 without Donald Trump. And it's really pathetic. Donald Trump leaves the presidency, the RNC goes broke. Now we're back. Let's take a look at the numbers. And I'm going to read it like we're reading in, an article, okay? Last week, I looked at the Democratic online fundraising giant Act Blue's performance in the last 6 months of 2023. And it was big, by the way. So this week, I'll be turning to WinRed, the most prominent GOP counterpart. The rub is that WinRed, while used by a large majority of Republicans at the federal level, isn't the only online fundraising choice for conservatives. And the others aren't conduit committees, so they don't have to report the same level of detail. So it's not quite an apples to apples comparison. And in some cases, Republicans use multiple online donation platforms. What does he mean by that? So, especially at the congressional level, there will be candidates who sign up for the WinRed consortium, if you want to call it that. You're going to give up a lot of your money. You are. And a lot of your money is going to go to other groups. It's kind of like a data sharing pool. And a lot of times they'll only let you in if you have something to contribute to that pool. All right. Like Act Blue, by the way. Act Blue appears to be a money laundering operation too, if you believe James O'Keefe's reports, which there's no reason not to believe him walking up to the front doorstep of an old man or a woman and busting them in money laundering. That is it's unbelievable the Justice Department did nothing with that information. Unbelievable. Not really unbelievable. It's totally believable. It's outrageous. Outrageous. But in the case of Republicans, a lot of them don't like to buy into that. Their supporters don't want them to have WinRed. Sometimes they will have WinRed for some limited things, or maybe it's even their dominant, but they'll have like an anecdote or something account as well. Or they'll use multiple people to try to raise them money from different avenues. The list of the top recipients of WinRed donations for the last 6 months of 2023 isn't surprising. One of the things I was looking for was any real signs of donor fatigue or weakness among the supporters of former President Donald Trump. I mostly did not find that, although there are some noteworthy changes under the surface. Trump's dominance of online fundraising on the right can be measured in several ways. Consider that his Trump Save America Joint Fundraising Committee was the recipient of 1 of every 5 donations processed by WinRed in the second half of the year. Holy sugar. The total amount of his WinRed donations, $57.9 million, represented nearly 25% of all the money given to GOP federal campaigns during that time. And by the way, this is old data now. To compare, the Republican National Committee's online haul of $8.9 million accounts for about 4% of the grand total. Trump alone can raise it. Nearly 1 of every $4 given to WinRed in the last 6 months of 23 went to Donald Trump and its joint fundraising committee. The percentage of the total raised by top recipients, you can see right here. The National Republican Senatorial Committee, 7.2. Nikki Haley for president, 4.9. The National Republican Congressional Committee, 4.7. The Republican National Committee, 3.8. Vivek 2024, a lot of which came from his own, but 3.0. Team Stand for America, 2.9, and Team Scalise, 2.7. Impressive for Vivek, Laura. Impressive. He's a first-time candidate. He had no name recognition, and yet he raised almost as much as the RNC as a percentage of the overall given to WinRed in the last 6 months of 23. Trump's committee raised more money than it did during the same period 2 years ago from 133,000 more donors. And that makes sense. In 21, he was not a declared presidential candidate. But beneath that growth is some interesting churn. Among the 357,000 donors from the second half of 21, Derek found about 87,000, or about a quarter, that appear to have given to Trump's committee during the same period last year. I don't know why Derek finds this so surprising. Trump is a low dollar donor guy. And he does have some big ones. Of those, of those who had given at least $10,000 between July and December of 21 and gave again 2 years later, just 1 gave more than previously. One Washington state donor who made more than 350 WinRed donations to Trump's committee in the second half of 21, totaling more than 21,000, gave 15 times during the same period last year for a total of $82.51. The same pattern occurs if you compare all of 23 to all of 21. Here's why I don't find this all that surprising. The people who can give that kind of money aren't staunch Trump donors. They were donating to Trump because they were trying to buy seats at the table that Trump doesn't give. All right. That's just the truth. When he was the man, when he was the president, when there was no, and even when he was the immediate president after that, or the immediate former president, there was nobody else to give to. When the competitive so-called season, came into play, these guys are not loyal Trumpers like the low dollar people are Trumpers. I guarantee you, a year from now, when we're not even, maybe even less, when we're going back to look at the first 6 months of 2024, you're going to see those numbers improve as big donors came to realize there's only one place to give. The same pattern occurs if you compare all of 23 to 21. Well, of course it does. That's when he was out at that point. Trump's main committee has pulled in more money from more unique donors, and the average WinRed donation has gone from 33% to 29%, which is good news for the former president. Exactly. But among repeat donors, there's not a lot who upped their donations last year compared to 2 years earlier. Well, of course. Again, I just explained that to you. Online donors aren't exactly a renewable source, but Trump has been able to hold on to his donor base and even expand it. The same can't really be said for most congressional Republicans, especially when we're talking about donations of less than $50. Comparing the change in those donations between 23 and 21, Trump is responsible for nearly all of the growth. Now, that is remarkable, and here's why. What was between 21 and 23? Everybody now, come on, locals. What occurred between 21 and 23? Come on, N-Dash. I see you typing there. What happened, guys? Why would you expect Republicans to do somewhat better during that period? Exactly, Nathan. Exactly. Techno Data's got it. Midterms. You would have expected them to be taking the reins here. Yet Trump's main committee pulled in nearly 86% more donations of less than $50 last year than it did in 21, including the 3 major party committees all saw declines, including the National Republican Congressional Committee. Listen. Hold on, wait. Small dollar boost for Trump, drop for the party. The percentage change in the number of contributions of less than $50 made via WinRed between 21 and 23 for selected GOP committees. Donald Trump's fundraising committees is the largest recipient in both years. Now, I don't know if he's listening or not. I know somebody who works for Elise. He usually listens to the show. Good for you, man. Good for your entire team. Look at that. Representative Elise Stefanik, Republican New York, a Trump ally, posted major gains among small dollar donors. And ironically, one of the biggest increases belonged to former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, well, of course, who was ousted in October. His replacement, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, has ramped up his small dollar solicitations since then. But let's just look at this for a second. Trump and what could be seriously considered his number one ally in Congress. Now, I know Stefanik's voting record is not like super MAGA. All right. But she's smart. She plays the game. She's playing the game. She is. You're never going to get in that in a position. If you were MAGA, let me put it this way. If you were Elise Stefanik, especially being from New York, and you were MAGA inside, you're never going to get to the place where you could do serious damage to the establishment in the name of MAGA without playing the game. You just can't. Look what she did to the presidents of Harvard and what was the other one? Penn State, right? It's just, there were so many of them, and she hauled up there and annihilated, destroyed their careers. Good for her. People are calling for genocides, and it's not hate speech. It's just such a tools. Not even like that's my hill to die on. It's just that the hypocrisy is unbelievable. Use the 3-letter F word and you'll be banned. Banned from Ivy League education. You call for the genocide of Jews and they'll give you like an honorary degree before you even earn it and put a place in there for tenure for you if you ever wanted to teach there about, how much you hate Jews. So good for her. The Russia hoax, the J6 stuff, the political persecutions. She's taken the fight to the judges, filed ethics complaints with bar associations. She's all over it. And look at her. And by the way, it's not openly talked about, but you have the New York establishment, which is one of the dumbest, most corrupt Republican establishments in the country. We all just saw what they did with George Santos and the dumb candidate that they picked already. I kid you not that they are going after, and he's a retired New York City detective. His name is Mike Saperconi, and they're backing him now. Again, he is their picked Senate candidate. He's a major Democrat donor. He gave $150,000 to Democrats. He's anti-Second Amendment. He hates Trump. And yet this is the guy they're getting behind in New York to run for Senate. This is how stupid these people are. And Elise is on the other side of that. And look at the money. Nothing, it's almost like nothing else we talk about matters because you can't win without money. If you're not enticing your base, there's just no way. You cannot win. Hold on one second. Like right after, I just need to tell, I guess, speaking of logistics, Representative Elise Stefanik and Mike Johnson, although Mike has run into, problems from like the war room crowd, the war room posse, as they call it, right? Of the congressional committees that raised at least $1 million via WinRed in the last half of 23, hardly any were for candidates in races that would be considered competitive, suggesting that the most effective online fundraisers aren't necessarily the ones who need it the most. Near the top of the list are James Comer of Kentucky, Ronnie Jackson of Texas, Eli Crane of Arizona, none of whom are facing anything remotely close to a stiff challenge. Yes, but what are they? Come on, guys. What are they? They may not be in competitive races, but what are they? And Sandy, he can push Santos again. He can. Santos could absolutely run again. And I'm telling you right now, George Santos would have won that election. He would have. And if he runs again, he'll probably win again. Blondie's got it. They're all MAGA. They're all MAGA. Sam Brown, the leading GOP candidate in Nevada, raised $1.2 million via WinRed during this period. Doing this period, as he wrote, but he meant during. That was slightly less than Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, who, despite being reelected in 22, raised $1.2 million. What is Ron Johnson? MAGA. Montanans had some clear WinRed successes during this period. Tim Sheehy, the Senate candidate whose fundraising emails I wrote about last week, pulled in more than 1.5 from WinRed donors. Right, but that is one that I would not call MAGA. I would not call Tim MAGA. However, he had MAGA support helping him. MAGA people helping him along with Mitch McConnell. So he had basically, he had both sides, kind of like Laxalt had in 22 before the official endorsement came down. By the way, let's see, that makes him second behind Senator candidates like Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Sheehy's average online donation was $33.05, higher than many of the recipients, but still a solid effort for the first-time candidate. That's true. Ryan Zinke It was the most competitive House race of any of the top recipients, ranked 17 among all recipients, and raised more than $1.6 million from more than 98,000 donations, more than he received via WinRed in the last half of 22, an actual election year. There are some names that aren't among the top WinRed recipients who you might expect to be. People like Jim Jordan of Ohio, prolific fundraiser, brought in more than $3.4 million during the second half of 23. But Jordan doesn't use WinRed. He does, I'm sorry. But since his 22 campaign, mostly he's gotten very small amounts that way. If you go and look through Jim Jordan's filings, you'll see where he gets his money from. His average WinRed donation between July and December was $4.08. Most of Jordan's online fundraising comes via e-donation. Oh, he did a different conservative platform. I forgot he put that in there. And then he goes into the special election results, which we don't really have to go over. Let me just look at what Laura's grabbed here. We got a healthy degree of overflow from the Q&A on Friday. So let's go ahead and start hitting those. But let me just end this by saying they can't get votes out without Donald Trump. They can't, and which is what this whole thing is about, by the way. Oyster Bay, North Hempstead, they all turned blue. And then some of the areas that were bright red were only pink. They cannot get these people to the polls without MAGA. They just can't do it. And this chart clearly shows they can't raise a damn dollar without MAGA. This party is defunct. The Republican Party, as you used to know it before Trump, is a defunct, failed party. They don't have a platform, anything distinguishable from Democrats. They don't, especially on foreign policy. They don't have a base, a coalition. And the one that they claim to still be a part of does not have any distinguishable features separating them from Democrats. The only thing that separates these people from Democrats is their inability to get votes and their inability to raise money. The Bush, neocon, Mark Thiessen, Noah Rothman, all the other morons, they are defunct. They don't have anything going for them. And by the way, their voters are dying. They're literally old and will be dead in 10 years, the rest of them. Less. Sorry. Facts. Facts on facts. They have no future. Mitt Romney, I'm not supporting Donald Trump. We know, Mitt. We know. We know you voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. We know you voted for Joe Biden in 2020. We know Brian Kemp is not voting for Donald Trump. He may talk it out of his ass, but if I watch Brian Kemp fill out his ballot, I guarantee you he's going to vote for Joe Biden. So again, what's the point? What is the point? I just don't see it. I don't see it. Anyway, that's one thing, just straight up asking what we do. That's a good question. And I got to be honest, I'm not 100% sure who I want to tell them, Laura. So I may have to push that one back a little bit. I know that early voting in that area has already started, but I've narrowed it down to 2, and I'm not sure I like any of them, to be totally honest. It would be nice if, how could I put this? It would be nice if they would respond in a better fashion. But as of right now, I'm not entirely thrilled with any of them for that particular office. But I'll address it when I get there. I just don't see it. I just don't see it. So... But we can go over it with you, and we can show you where these people have, where they get their money from, where they've, what they've supported. I mean, it's a shame because in a lot of these primary elections, a lot of these people have been relatively quiet for a while. And I don't like that. It's like in this day and age, how you don't have a presence is unbelievable. To me, it's almost unheard of. Like you should absolutely be out there running for a statewide office like that. We'll take a look at them though. All right. How about we do that when we get to that question? Let's do that. Okay. Why in the world do states have open primaries? Cram Nibble. It lets the opposition party play a part in selecting their nominee. Listen, I used to be an advocate for open primaries myself, and I'm going to tell you why. Because you want these independent voters in the middle to be interested in your politics so that, yeah, I think I'm explaining this correctly, so that when the general election comes, you're like bringing new people into your fold. You want that to be the case. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that there's a way to get around what's been going on. Like I'm not sure there's an answer to it anymore. And I talked to Sandy Smith, who's running for the Republican nomination in North Carolina's 1st congressional district. She was the prior Republican nominee endorsed by Donald Trump. Do not vote for her opponent. You're in North Carolina. You better vote for her unless you want a neocon who they planted from Washington, D.C. in your race, because that's who she is. Sandy is legit America first. And that's why they hate her. They hate her guts. And she also outperformed, considering what they did to her district in the 1st. She would have won this district. So just remember that. But we were talking about this, and it's like sad because I have long been an advocate of open primaries, and I think it's smarter for parties to want to bring those people into their systems. However, if there's, because our elections have changed, and if the party has no mechanism anymore, but to which they can like stop candidates who are on suicide missions and sabotage missions like Nikki Haley, then maybe they do need to close their primary. And that's a shame because you want to attract people to your party. And unless they find a way to remedy this situation, then I guess they are going to have to close them, because all it means now, what people are going to learn, and you're right about this, Graham, what people are going to learn, especially Democrats who have more money than Republicans, is that they're going to be able to interfere and even pick, in some cases, their party's nominee and weaken the opposing party's ultimate nominee. And that's more, I think now it's more risky to allow that to happen than because they'll just drain your treasury. If they have more money than you, they'll drain your treasury. And that's what she's trying to do to Donald Trump. She's just part of the lawfare. She is. She's just part of the lawfare. She's part of the plan to just stop Donald Trump, bankrupt him, drain his resources, and make it so Joe Biden can win an election he has otherwise no chance to win. Even Nate Silver, by the way, just tweeted, our old friend Nate, thanks for the lifetime ban, Nate, you. So, even he just said, Joe Biden is losing and there's no plan to fix it. There is, though, Nate. You're not paying attention, bubble boy. The plan is to prosecute him. The plan is to make him a felon. The plan is to bankroll Nikki Haley so Nikki Haley continues this ridiculous, futile effort, pretending she's trying to be the Republican nominee. She's not trying to be the Republican nominee. She's trying to hurt the Republican nominee. So unfortunately, I don't know any other way you could fix that end of it but to close those primaries. I guess that really does need to be done, and that's sad. Sad. And it forces me to register, which I can't stand. In Florida, we had to register as a party member if we wanted to vote in a party's primary. And by the way, you basically have to do that in North Carolina too, or did. It's a little different now. It's a hybrid. Regarding open or it's modified semi-open. Regarding open primaries, how much did Trump benefit from them in 2016? We need to be consistent. Dale, perfect. I'm so glad Laura put those questions back to back, because that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So Trump benefited greatly. He would not have won New Hampshire without it being an open primary. He crushed South Carolina, but he won across the board. But he certainly won Republicans less He had this weird coalition after South Carolina, well, from South Carolina and beyond, where he would win the conservative overall, but he would not win the very conservative everywhere. He would win somewhat, and then he would win moderates. But the difference is that Democrats were not voting for Donald Trump in an Operation Chaos-like setting. These were working class Democrats who had voted for Barack Obama and independents who had voted for Barack Obama, who were attracted to Trump's real message, his legit message, and felt that there was nowhere else to go, that the Democratic Party wasn't for them anymore. And that's a perfect example of why for years I was an advocate of open primaries, because you want to attract those people. Unfortunately, back then, or fortunately back then, there was nothing going on like there is now. And we're just seeing these unique anomalies. Every year there's something different being introduced into a process. And I hate to say it, but I think we're going to have to evolve if that's the way it's going to be. And Democrats don't seem to face that problem for a few reasons. One, Nikki Haley and Democrats realize that there are a lot of Democrats who don't like Joe Biden and certainly don't love him, and that they'd be willing to do this right now instead of vote for him. Two, and that's not the case, I would say. Real quick, back to one. That's not the case with the Republicans. They love Donald Trump. 80% of them love him, and they would rather vote for him than play in some Operation Chaos bull, And then they would rather express their support for him than do that. And then two is that Democrats have more money than Republicans, a lot more money than Republicans. And they can afford it. They can afford it. Republicans can't. So it's a very one-sided danger right now, one-sided advantage, disadvantage situation. And so Republicans are going to have to be forced to do that. They are. Again, I'm just showing you, look at the title of look at what he entitled that graph. Trump alone can raise it. I mean, they're losers. They're losers. All right. That's a good question. With so many of the problems facing America, illegal immigration, wokeism, state censorship, lawfare stemming from a gross underappreciation of the Declaration, the Constitution, Judeo-Christian values, is there a way to pull this issue in the aggregate rather than issue by issue? Not really. I mean, there is, but I don't know that it would be willing to not only that would be willing to do it, but if it would be more beneficial to use a question like that instead of, those simple issues. There's open-ended, more focus group kind of things that we could do that I would see that would be a more appropriate setting. And maybe we should do things like that more often. Maybe I should host like Zoom focus groups you guys can like watch and not participate in. Maybe we can get some questions ahead of time, decide what we're going to ask these people. But focus groups are more expensive, I will tell you that, or typically they are. But that would be interesting too, like live Zoom focus groups. That'd be cool. That'd be really cool, especially with the new software now, Laura. We use Zoom to bring in guests, so that would be cool. You guys haven't seen that yet. We have some bugs. We're still working it out, but otherwise, it's going to be really cool. I'm also going to have no choice but to spend a fortune on new equipment to make sure that it runs well. Lamont, how do we get through to Trump that he's the only one who can get people to switch their voting patterns to vote early, and that his delay in addressing this is hurting the ground game to make it happen? He's the only one who can make it happen. I've told TPA they are wasting time and money without him teeing up the effort first. Wow, Lamont. This is why I love my locals page. You're 100% correct. I thought that some conversations I had months back did sink in, and public statements I've heard Trump make, I know they did. However, I think I know what happened here. And the president is always welcome on. I've been busting their chops to bring him on for a while. I'd love to ask him that, because I suspect I know what happened, but I can't speak for the man. I just think that he was willing to do it a year ago, less than a year ago. And then these sons of bitches spent $300+ million trying to beat him in a primary. And if you're Donald Trump, you're thinking, I don't need this like they need it. I drive people out. And trust me, I know folks, he sees when we're doing our streams and I'm like, he just broke the record. He broke the record in New Hampshire. He did that. So if you're Trump, aren't you thinking to yourself, to hell with these people? I will be reelected. I will get these voters out. They're on their own after that. I don't know that that's what he's thinking. I'm just thinking myself as a man who I think I'm A-type, Trump's A-type. That's how I'd feel. You SOBs. Here I am about to help you. You're going to use me to get these voters out. You can't win without me. And you have the audacity, the unmitigated gall to take that money instead of building a vote operation and spending it to beat me and my majority coalition? F you! I can't blame the guy. Can you? Think about it. It's a good question, though, Lamont. I'm with you 100%, and all I can tell you is that I'll do my damnedest. Dan! Or is it D.A. Newsom? Locals! We should get our vote. Who should get our vote for North Carolina Secretary of State? Listen, I'm just telling you, as of right now, I'm personally working this out myself. Let's go over the candidates, shall we? Here we have Chad Brown. Chad Brown has 495 followers on his Twitter page. He has retweeted several things from Mark Robinson. He's got billboards up. He's tweeted his billboards. He just did a couple of days ago. Just 18 hours ago, he retweeted Mark Robinson, who said, "Violence in our streets and against law enforcement is unacceptable. Thank you to the brave officers who put themselves in harm's way to keep North Carolina safe. When I'm governor, this lawlessness will end. We'll have law enforcement's back every step of the way and put violent criminals back behind bars where they belong." And then he tweeted a link to a Spectrum News. Spectrum is a news outlet here in North Carolina. It basically said 8 arrested in protests that closed the Southeast Charlotte Road for hours. If you go down, you have Margot, who is North Carolina District 11 secretary. She put out a tweet that basically said, North Carolina, now's the time to decide. Do you want a bunch of Tillis disciples, or do you want to change North Carolina to a grassroots state? And then she puts the list of people that she has on that ticket. Okay, you ready? For governor, Robinson. Lieutenant Governor, Mashburn. For AG, Dan Bishop. I'm already telling you right now, for 2 out of 3, I'm decided on 2 out of 3 of those already. And, I'm just telling you, I don't know that I'd like to tell people how I personally vote, but I mean, I don't care. It's just I don't want to influence you. I want you to do your due diligence. But
There you go. You choose who you want, but
you choose who you want, but I'm voting for Mark Robinson. Okay. You choose who you want, but I'm voting for Dan Bishop for Attorney General. You choose who you want, but I'm leaning towards Mashburn for Lieutenant Governor. And for Secretary of State, I like this guy. The only problem is when you go down, he hasn't raised a whole hell of a lot of money. So through January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024, he's only raised $46,000. And he's expended about 23. So he's kind of smart with it. However, his top contributors: Tim Moore, a campaign; Timothy Connor, Anderson Warlick, Daryl Hardin, Kent Olson, Louis Dean. I mean, these are like individual donors. That's a good thing. If you go to some of the other ones, they're groups. What does that matter? I don't like groups. I don't like it when people are given money from, like, for instance, I kind of like Jesse Thompson as like a person, and I was like looking into him, and I like him as a person, but he doesn't have enough public statements for me to discern who he really is and where he comes from. He has 94 followers. He's raised $30,000, and he's expended 105. I don't like that. He's in debt. His very first top contributor is Molina Healthcare. So to me, I like him as a guy. Some of the things I've heard him say sounds pretty cool, but you know what I mean? The other one is Christine Villaverde. And very, listen, it doesn't hurt to have a cute girl. She's cute. She's like Southern cute. Top contributors are all individuals. I don't want to say names, but she's not, I don't know what she's raised since then, but she got a very early start and it was only like $7,000. I did hear that this is someone that has been like personally, she ran for election in North Carolina's 1st congressional district. So she's out now. That's right. That's it. Never mind. Did she move out? Oh, no. She will not appear on the ballot for that anymore. I feel like, let me give you her bio. Christine Villaverde was born in Johnson City, New York. Oh, I was born in New York, so don't hold it against me. Villaverde earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Fayetteville State University in 2016 and a master's degree in public policy from Liberty University. Her career experience includes working as a safety and continuity of operations consultant and a continuity of operations officer with the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts, a police officer with the Avondale Police Department, and a notary public in North Carolina. She's been affiliated with the National Rifle Association as a lifetime member and the North Carolina Federation of Women. And let me just give you the other guy's biography. It's not much. He's basically had several things, public service jobs and stuff like that. But he's definitely more working class, I would say that. So, that's where I kind of am right now. And like I said, where is that other one? If you go to Villaverde's Twitter account, it looks, I don't know. It looks Clena Mitchell, who was Trump's attorney, endorsed her, but it looks a little too good. You know what I mean? And then she has Tea Party support. I don't know. So it's tough. It's a tough call. I mean, it's a real tough call, and I'm honestly not sure yet where I'm going to go. I'm really not sure, but I know one's out, and it's tough. I don't know. I don't want to. I don't know. Anyway, what does she say? She's saying, so Margot, who also, listen, she's been in North Carolina politics for a while, and she's pushing Brown. And this is like, there's a group of people in North Carolina that have like never failed. Maybe they didn't give the best candidate for a general election, but at the end of the day, they did get somebody who was solid. So, if you were looking at like on paper, who's the best, you would probably go with Villaverde. But Brown appears to be more solid, and these people, they're running for these big positions, Laura. They owe people more like discussion. You know what I mean? It's like they run these like shadow campaigns, and the word is Tillis supports Villaverde, I believe. I'm like 90% sure. And we've asked, that's why I alluded to that wisecrack before, because we want people to like respond, and when they don't respond, it makes me nervous. So, that's where I'm leaning right now, but I'm not 100%. I don't know if you're voting early. I will vote early myself when I'm ready. I'm just not ready yet. By the way, North Carolina Republicans are voting early. This is why, again, people are like, well, Rich, Mike isn't, Michael Whatley's not 100% Trump. And it's like, yeah, but if Laura Trump is sitting right next to him, watching her, and being like co-chair with him, then that's a brilliant move. I'll tell you what he is. He's successful. He's got the resume and the success record to back it up. 30,000 votes right now. A little over 30,000 votes right now are Democratic votes. A little over 28,000 votes right now are Republican votes, and about 20,000 votes are non-party affiliated. Republicans are right on Democrats' tail with early voting in North Carolina. Right there. And every year, it gets a little closer. They were a little bit further behind Democrats in 22 when Buck won. They got their turnout. But what's important about doing what Whatley's doing is that he understands that vote, get it banked, whatever. But we have new voters too that are, we could make sure get out on election day, push. So if we can keep it close, we know we're going to win. That's what his mind is telling him right now. So he had that strategy and it seems to be working. So, I think he's the right person for the RNC. I do, which I publicly said a while ago. And I'm glad they listened. All right. So regarding the media, is this the last election when broadcast television will have any significant influence as people turn to podcasts for news and commentary? They'll still have it for we'll see. I do think that their days are ultimately numbered. I do. Their business model's broken and people care less and less every year. Do you ask what, Laura? Pop in. I can't hear you through the door, baby.
They became more of a political organization now versus an actual news outlet. So it's no longer just the news. It's now their belief system, and that's it.
And people know that,
Mm-hmm. That's why they're a dying breed. If they would have kept the status quo from way back when, all would be great for their viewership, their ratings, and whatnot. But I mean, here we are doing these primaries just because they need ratings and they want to get paid. Meanwhile, we suffer for their benefit and they don't care, even though they all know Donald Trump is going to win.
Yeah. And by the way, just check the messages. I don't think you saw one I sent you. Yeah, because it's like 2 minutes to 2 now. So I guess. All right. So I mean, why is Rachel Maddow paid $20 million when only 1 million people watch her show? She's paid for narrative. She's paid for advocacy. She's paid to give marching orders. That's what she's paid to do. But 1 million people for her at this point is still a lot. They've been going down. They're trending down. I do think, like I said, I think that their days are numbered. I really believe that. I've long thought Reagan was overrated and Nixon should be the real 20th century conservative hero. But the fact that since FDR, no party has held the White House for longer than 8 years, except for Reagan Bush, is truly a mic drop. That accomplishment speaks for itself. And that tells you, Red Diver, how much the American voters loved Reagan. They did not like Herbert Walker Bush that much. They gave him a chance because Reagan went to that convention and gave that speech. And in an era when that stuff mattered, they said, okay, Ronnie, for you, one time, and we'll see how this guy does. And then he backstabbed everybody. Sicilian, Laura. I know. But I'm with you 100%. That does speak for itself. It does, but it speaks for Ronnie and how much they loved him. I do think, though, like you, I think Nixon did incredible things. Détente is brilliant. I'm a realist. I am a foreign policy realist. I got bored and decided to get a degree in international relations. It is dominated by realism, and our country is not. And our foreign policy, the blob is not. It is dominated by idiots who believe in things like Bruce Russert's democratic peace theory and Irving Kristol and neoconservatism, like the dumbest shit imaginable that is not practicable in the real world. And yet they do it because there's an old trick and there's an old saying in academia. If you can't defend your thesis, don't worry, you can still get a job at the State Department. That is the old joke, but it's sad. It's not funny. It's not funny, And that's what our ruling class and the blob and, together, that's what they think. And the military industrial complex bankrolls that narrative. They want that. They don't want you to go back to Nixon. They want you to think Nixon was this awful, crooked guy and, black stain. No, he wasn't. And they took him out because he was in their way. They took him out because he was a working class guy who made his way to the most powerful office in the world. Not only that, he was a working class, poor ass guy who had the world at his fingertips. He wasn't just a normal president. He was extremely powerful, and they were terrified of him. Everything goes back to the Patriot Act. Bannonites United on Getter. The Patriot Act, again, this is why I can't stand people like Mark Thiessen. Why are they even offering their opinions? If you were part of the worst foreign policy disaster in the history of the country, and you got your start writing speeches for Donald Rumsfeld and George W. Bush that were explicitly aimed at scaring the shit out of people so that the free folk would give up their liberty, what the hell are you even doing talking anymore? Go crawl under a rock and wither away. until the winds of time sweep the dust of you out of existence. How do you even sleep with all that blood on your hands? You and David Frum like drinking buddies? You get bombed every night until you don't think about all the dead people? Calling the nerve of your ass, by the way, you spineless little coward, to call J.D. Vance a coward. J.D. Vance signed up for your lie. Where were you, pretty boy? Hiding behind Rumsfeld's desk, sucking on your thumb like a baby. Well, the rest of us, you piece of shit. Pig pug. As a former vapor, we all know what the pause and weird crackling noise is. Listen, I was doing well. I'm getting back on the patches soon. I promise. I got to deal with the idiots like that freaking fat slob, Chubby Cheeks over there. Never lifted a rucksack in his life. Good for Sean Davis, by the way. I just left it to Sean. I saw his reply, but I blew a gasket when I saw that tweet. You slimy piece of shit. Strong rural Hispanic community, second largest non-metro area in Colorado. Lots to dissect there if it continues. And that's Christina Bay. Yeah, and I'm telling you, I actually think that New Mexico is probably the richer target. But it's time to go over to Human Events with Jack. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them, subscribe, share them far and wide. The best place to follow us, of course, is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. See you on Human Events in a few minutes. And I will see you over on Gorka at 4 o'clock. Wednesday, don't forget.
And Human Events is on Rumble, X, Getter.
They
you can
know.
find them. Yeah. Well, I'm just reminding some people.
I'll blast it out now on my Twitter too. All right. All the best, guys. I will see you on Wednesday. And we'll talk more about what we're going to do with the polling. All the best. Because I don't want to poll South Carolina and waste the money when we could do something like a battleground state poll or something. Good. I can't help myself. Peace out.